What's going on, Jeromes? Beautiful day for some Q&A. Thank you, everyone who submitted questions. First up, R-Free, OG Jerome. Does Ty Felton have a shot at winning the wide receiver 3 job from Speedy? Different style and skill, but does he have a higher upside? So I think Naylor's going to surprise a lot of people. In a contract year, career high 6 touchdowns last year, and I know had a couple of ill-timed drops, especially that one against the Rams that just killed you, right? But I think that Speedy clearly has the inside track for wide receiver 3 as well as wide receiver 2 if and when Addison faces his suspension. I think Felton will be in the mix more than people think, but also Rondale Moore is a freaking wild card, man, because if he's healthy, like, he brings such a unique dimension that I don't know. But Felton, long speed is obviously one thing, but also just his yards after catch ability. Like, he's extremely shifty. I think he's a little bit underrated in that department. So I think the Vikings have a sneaky deep wide receiver room. Obviously when you have Jefferson, you're going to be good, but Addison is obviously solid, but then you get Naylor, Moore, Felton, some of the other young guys in that mix as well. I think that the Vikings are going to be good. No matter how they want to attack things, I think that they could have a rotation of the wide receiver 3-4 and go from there. The best pushing the best, or it could be a spot where Naylor has a really solid season, probably leaves in free agency, and the Vikings get some comp pick consideration, and then Ty Felton with a year under his belt steps in. It's just that dude. Next, Alphabet Memes. What are your must-watch games next season? Why? All of them. But must-watch games. So aside from division, which is obviously a given, Falcons Sunday Night Football Week 2 is going to be good because it's going to be McCarthy versus Penix. Also, I wonder if Kurt is still going to be the backup. Probably, right? That's rough. That's rough, man. But no one wants that contract. Bengals obviously at home. You have Jefferson versus Chase and all that stuff. And Vikings I wonder if Shamar Stewart's going to sign by then. I don't know. But the Vikings going to light up that ass. And then also you got the European excursion. Steelers in Ireland going to whoop Aaron Rodgers' ass in 3 different countries. And then you got the Browns. Is Shedeur Sanders going to win the quarterback 1 job? Who really knows? Eagles is monstrous off of the bye at home. And as we pointed out several times before, a bunch of the Vikings' big-time games this year are all at home. Bengals, Eagles, Ravens, Commies, all at home. So that's pretty massive for the Vikings. And then the Ravens and the Commies games are going to be huge. Obviously, the revenge game late November at Seattle, because we're always at Seattle with Sam Darnold. But every single game you can make a case. The Chargers, the Harbaugh McCarthy Bowl. You can make a case that every single one of these games is important in its own right. But the Viking schedule, it's tough on paper, but also they got to play the Vikings, man. So that's what I'm thinking. So, every single game is must watch. But there's a couple of I can't wait to see the Jaden Daniels and JJ McCarthy duel Week 14, because McCarthy will cease to be a first-time starter by then. He'll have a bunch of games under his belt, so that's gonna be good. That's gonna be good, man. Next. Eagle and Guitar Guy. My 5-month-old daughter is going to grow up with Jets the same way I grew up with Randy and Chris. But I wonder what random Vikings she's going to fall in love with and follow. Mine were Chris Walsh and Charles Johnson. Who do you follow? Who did you follow that fell into that category? Klein Saucer. So Klein Saucer, Winfield Senior. I know he was a star, but I just identified with him because I could see eye to eye with him as a 12-year-old. But see who else was that really into? I know Jeff Dugan. Jeff Dugan was a backup tight end from Maryland. Whenever I played Madden, I would always jack up his blocking rating, so he'd become like Josh Oliver out there. It was really good. But I don't know, sneaky fan favorites. I think LDR, Levi Drake Rodriguez. Once he gets into that rotation, I think that he's going to have a lot of fans. Some other random ones. I don't really see. Maybe Walter Rouse. Walter Rouse just has a fun personality. I could see him being a fan favorite. I don't really know one else. Carry on my Jayward son. Maybe Taki Taimani on the nose. Everyone loves the nose tackle, man. I don't know. Yeah, so my vote will be LDR. It's a great story. Also, fans always love the heart and hustle type guy. That's why Chris Walsh was so great. Pride of Stanford. There you go. Next. Jesus loves you for Eva and Eva. Man, whatever happened to some of the players and coaches that I was really high on under the Zimmer regime? I thought Andre Patterson was going to stick around too, and McCardle stayed. Not that it didn't work out, but man, was he an undeniable phenomenal coach? And what happened to Jalen Twyman? I thought he was going to pull a B-Rob and come back and be a mini Aaron Donald for us after getting shot. So Patterson. After the Vikings and Zimmer broke up, Patterson signed up with the Giants. He's been there ever since. He was on the opposite sideline during the Donishell wildcard game, and I mean Dre is overseeing a hellacious defensive line, man. I mean, you got Sexy Dexy, you got Burns, you got Tibbs, and now you got Carter. So I think that Giants are going to be just fine. Andre Patterson, I always thought that Patterson sort of got shafted. Like, he should have just been the full-time defensive coordinator, even though Zimmer was calling plays. But, splitting time with Adam Zimmer, rest in power. But, I don't know. Like, I feel like Dre sort of got short shafted in that spot. So, I always loved and respected Andre Patterson as a coach. I think he's a solid leader, too. I think, frankly, he should have been on a head coaching track. But also, I don't know if he's interested in that anymore, because there's something to be said about, want to be level up, be a head coach, be a coordinator, all that stuff. But there's something to be said about just being the best position coach in the league at your position. And that has a ton of value. Where it goes Mike Munchak, who Hall of Fame Hall of Fame offensive lineman. And eventually he became the head coach of the Titans. And he talked about, he had a discussion with his wife. He was like, hey, I could just be the best O-line coach in the game, and I could be employable all the time, or I could become a head coach and I could get fired after a year. But they went the head coach route, didn't work out. But Patterson's fantastic. As far as Twyman, so Twyman was a guy I was crushing on as well, because he was drafted in the Rona year, and there's a whole bunch of questions, but I just remember his draft day call. Spielman called him up, and he's all emotional and stuff. I'm just like, he's going to bring it. Undersized defensive lineman from Pitt. This is Aaron Donald 2.0. Then he got shot, and then he came back, and then it didn't quite work out. And I don't think he's caught on anywhere else. Yeah. Speaking of memory lane, Wesley White, OG Jerome. This is a good question. Who is a rookie you wanted the Vikings to get that ended up bad? Who is a rookie you wanted the Vikings that turned out to be good? So that part of the question first. Famously, I preferred Jalen Reagor in the draft over Justin Jefferson, because I, like a lot of people who will never admit it now, by the way. It's funny how revisionist history just like happens, right? But I was concerned that Jefferson could only play in the slot and would struggle against press on the outside. Obviously, I was wrong. Happy to be wrong, right? And when the Vikings in 2020 were looking to replace Stephon Diggs, I liked a guy like Jalen Reagor, because I liked his vertical ability. I think that there was some shades of Tyreek Hill to his game, and I was willing to gamble on that upside. And obviously, it didn't work out with the Eagles. Glad that they took Reagor, and then the Vikings got Jefferson. Jalen, ironically, ended up with the Vikings for a hot second. Didn't work out there either. But that was one. Also, one that definitely turned out, Max Crosby, Eastern Michigan. So I love that kid. I love the hell out of his story, where very lightly recruited, and basically, so I think the story was like he was born and raised in Michigan, ended up in Texas playing high school ball, was very lightly recruited, basically just drove to Ypsilanti and say like, hey, please, Eastern Michigan, please, and your weird field. And they gave him a scholarship, and then the rest is history. And then now he's like GM of Eastern Michigan. He donated. The stadium's named after him now. It's awesome to see. But during the draft process, I called him Baby Jared Allen, because he was a heart, hustle, and muscle defensive lineman from a small school. Jared Allen, Idaho State, I want to say. Go Bengals. I think Marvin Lewis went to Idaho State too. Yeah. But yeah, that was definitely one just like, because I think Max Crosby was a 5th round pick, something like that. And then second part of the question, just the same question, but a rookie that the Vikings did draft. So the 2021 draft, I was all in on Wyatt Davis no matter what, man. And just him at Ohio State, Him, son of the linebacker from the program, and Dwayne Davis, and just him, blue blood program, and it just didn't work out. Don't know what it is. But also, hey, Wyatt Davis should not sour you on Donovan Jackson, by the way, but I digress. And then from that same draft, 2021, I was all in on Christian Darrisaw from the jump, right? And that was the draft with Rashawn Slater, Leatherwood went to the Raiders, and for that we thank you. And so I was all in on Darrisaw. He had a sports hernia issue, so he didn't test during the draft season part, but just his dominance at Virginia Tech, and he was just a people mover. He was quick. He had the right temperament. He was a team-first dude, and everything with that is panned out. So, because remember, the Vikings were at 14, and then they traded with the Jets, another chapter in the dumbest rivalry in sports history, and they traded down because the Jets came up to take Elijah Vera Tucker. Vikings ended up in the I think it's 23, somewhere in there, early 20s. Darrisaw ended up falling into their lap, and so the rest is history. Everything else is working out. But we could do an entire day of programming just based on draft crushes that I wanted that didn't work out, draft crushes that I wanted that did. But there you go. Anyways, Q&A on this beautiful Sunday. You guys are the best you know what to do. Skol, production value.